are listening to the Slash and Cast Podcast Network. Enjoy the show.
Hey folks, Justin here with a quick word before we dive into this episode featuring Miss Lisa Wilcox. Alice is one of my personal favorite final girls, and certainly one of the most badass, so I'll keep this short and sweet. In this episode, Angelique, Henry, and myself discuss theater, A Nightmare on Elm Street, of course, Robert Englund, and pranking Jonathan Frakes with Mrs. Wilcox. So sit back and enjoy.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Alright Lisa, nothing fancy here. Just to get started, take us back in time so we have a platform to sort of jump off here. What were you into when you were a kid? Were you reading books? Were you watching a lot of movies? Did you love playing outside? What sparked your creativity?
I was into books. Reading books like Nancy Drew, mystery or ghost stories. I was always fascinated by the supernatural, and first novel I ever read was Dracula in 4th grade, and it was not on the reading list. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Anyway, so that's really what I was into, I would say. Definitely books. And of course, TV. I mean, Saturdays were the best day because it used to be cartoon day, you know, so you're in your pajamas, whatever. And then there would be the Monkeys at noon. And then after the Monkeys, they would show all kinds of fabulous, Twilight Zone, black and white movies, all that. So that's what I was into.
Did you read any Hardy Boys books back in the day? That was my guilty pleasure.
Sure I did, yes. I read pretty much anything I could get my hands on. Oh, and I would get into character, I was Nancy Drew, I think that's why I love reading so much, because it just took me away, the lives of the characters.
Now, were your parents interested in the arts at all? What sort of ushered you into that direction? Were you into theater much as a kid? Take any drama classes?
Yes, actually, I grew up in Missouri, and they had season tickets to the Muni Opera. So that's where I saw, Oklahoma and, musicals and whatnot. And we would go to New York a fair amount and see Broadway plays. Remember seeing Evita, the play Dracula, all kinds of stuff. So I think my folks, too, they also introduced us to water skiing and tennis and all sports and stuff. So they gave me and my sister a lot of experiences.
So what were some of your first experiences acting? Was it high school?
Well, yes, it was in Missouri, 9th grade, and the TV show MASH?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was actually first a play. So the high school I was going to did MASH, and I auditioned, and I got a little role, the character of Ms. Randazzo. So I had 2 scenes, and it was basically a little comedy spot that took place in front of the curtain. So it's opening night, and the whole auditorium is completely sold out. Mom and dad's in the aisle, everyone's there. So Ms. Randazzo, I was like red lipstick, stiletto heels, pencil skirt, and think of the time, and the scene is me walking over to my boss's desk and sitting on his desk and with my steno pad and whatnot. So I'm walking, and one of the footlights was not locked. Those footlights that go down flat or they're up. So center stage, it's not locked. My foot goes down. I am literally trapped by this footlight. My shoe is hanging, dangling from my ankle with the straps, and I'm completely stuck. And, steno pad, pencil go flying, and the guy who was playing my boss starts to sort of improv, and he's like, "So you had a little too much to drink there, Ms. Randazzo?" Anyway. And everyone in the audience thought this was part of the act, they didn't know.
Right.
Till after. And anyway, backstage, they realized, something was amiss. So Hawkeye sticks his head out and helps, untrap me from the nasty footlight and proceeded to do the scene. So that was my introduction to acting. What's the most horrible thing that could happen to you live in front of 400 people? So it was kind of funny because the next day at school on Monday, no one had known who I was. And now it's like, oh my God, that was crazy. When they heard what really happened. And shortly thereafter, though, my dad was offered a great job in California. We moved to Southern California. But at this point, I had decided acting wasn't for me. And I was going to go into the medical field, actually. So anyway, a friend invited me to go with him to an audition he was having at Buddy Ebsen's theater in Newport Beach. And I said, sure, I'll come along, you know. So I'm just sitting there watching the auditions, theater, and this lady keeps tapping my shoulder. She was the producer of the play, this particular play. And she said, you're auditioning, right? I'm like, oh, no, thank you, no. Anyway, she was very persistent. So after the third time, I said, okay, fine. You know, I had no idea what this play was about or anything. Got up, read the sides, and I got the lead role in this play, The Hot L Baltimore by Lanford Wilson. And then I also got some awards and that kind of thing. So from then on, I was totally bit by the bug, and I did equity waiver theater, not so much high school theater. I did school, but at night, play after play after play, and then ultimately went to UCLA, theater arts major. So there you go.
So I've never done any acting or any improv on any sort of level. So when you're just starting out and you're performing in front of your peers, say, you know, the people you have chemistry class with, is that more difficult than performing for an audience that you don't know?
Nah, for me, no difference. No difference. In some way, I mean, it's probably a little more nerve-wracking to do equity waiver, strangers in the audience, you know, whereas in high school, you know, they're rooting for you kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
So I would say doing equity waiver is a little more stressful.
Gotcha. So how did this theater experience at UCLA eventually transfer into your first taste of Hollywood?
Well, let's see. So UCLA, and I did some plays there, of course, and I got a manager and through that experience. In the old days, that's how you got an agent or a manager. You did theater because they would go around looking for their next ingenue or whatever, filling up their client list. So I had a manager, and I think my first few things were like this show called True Confessions, you know, these things, you know, to just build my television resume and whatnot. And, you know, just good old auditioning. Hardcastle McCormick, I think, was my first guest star, and I play a beauty queen, but a nice role. Yeah, so, you know, guest star TV stuff was, you know, the beginning.
So was The Dream Master your very first feature?
No, actually. So, you know what, now that I think about it, my very first on-set experience, other than commercials, because I did do commercials, was a film called, well, at the time, it was called The Big Cheer. They changed the name to Give Me an F. And I took a quarter off from UCLA to be a featured extra in this film. And it was a classic TNA 80s kind of movie, right? And it was about 4 cheerleading squads, you know, and, you know, we're competing and whatnot. And the squad I was in, we were called the Demons. A little bit of foreshadowing, interesting enough. And we wore like black and red, and we smoked, you know, we were like the cool cheerleaders, kind of slutty.
Was that a horror movie?
No, TNA, tits and ass.
Yeah. Well, that's horror
80s.
movies too, you know.
So were you aware of, or were you maybe even a fan of the Elm Street franchise before the role of Alice?
Oh, yeah. I was a total fan. I loved horror since I was little.
Yeah, Dracula.
So, yeah, I absolutely knew about Nightmare on Elm Street for sure. All the other ones, too. So I had my manager and I had an agent. So, you know, they submit us actors for you. They go through the breakdowns and say, oh, that would be good for Lisa, or, you know, whatever. And then they submit to the casting office. And then you know, fingers crossed, the casting director will bring you in to read. So with Nightmare on Elm Street, although interesting enough, so my manager's told me he had submitted me for Nightmare 4. I'm so excited. And then he calls me and he says, well, they're not going to audition you. Now you have to understand, I had virgin platinum blonde hair, the makeup. I mean, I looked like a cheerleader or a beauty queen or something like that. Nothing like how the character of Alice, right? So anyway, Annette Benson, who casts Nightmare 1 through 5, told me that when, you know, eventually I got the role, but she said they auditioned like hundreds of actresses for Alice, could not find their Alice. So they went to the reject pile, which is where I was. Hi. And finally got my opportunity. I was the last one cast, by the way, because I couldn't find Alice. Anyway, went in with no makeup and like dirty hair. I wore my worst color, pale yellow. You know, I had gotten the script and totally related to Alice because I was definitely a daydreamer growing up. I auditioned. I had one call back. I read with Tuesday Night, who reprised the role of Kristen. It was a Friday, and I was getting married that Sunday, 150 people wedding. And I was on my honeymoon when I learned I got the role of Alice. And they asked me to dye my hair. Right.
Real quick, while we're on the subject of hair color, sidebar, what was the reasoning for the switch from red to blonde in between Nightmare 4 and 5?
They just didn't even bother.
Thank you. Oh, gotcha.
And it stained my hair, actually, like having a rinse put on it every single day because I didn't want to permanently dye it. But I may as well have, because after 8 weeks of throwing red dye on, basically, think of red paint on a white wall, right? It stained my hair. So by 5, it never went back to its original, but it was blonder, definitely.
So what was your first impression of Robert Englund?
Oh, he's just so lovely. Just so lovely. He has absolutely no attitude at all. His training was all theater and Shakespeare as well. So, immediately felt comfortable and we could talk about theater and he was great. I mean, of course I was nervous. I mean, I'm meeting Robert Englund. I'm going to work with Robert Englund. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. But no, he's lovely.
So how long was it after Dream Master that you knew that you were coming back for the 5th film?
It was pretty soon after because 4 did really well at the box office. It made the most of all of them. Wow. Nightmare 3 comes in a close second as far as what it made. So came out in August, September, October. I want to say that fall, or it could have been spring. I don't remember. I think that fall. They said, okay. And they had chosen their director, Stephen Hawkins. So, and they offered the role to me. Had lunch with Stephen Hawkins, and there you go.
Now, do you think that was a direct result of the movie's success at the box office, or was it always planned to have the Alice storyline leak into the 5th one?
No, I don't think they had any idea. No, they had no idea. But with 4 doing so well and whatnot, and I got a lot of wonderful reviews and stuff in the newspaper. And so they invited me back.
Trust me, we're all glad they brought you back. Now, you just mentioned Steven. The 5th movie was directed by Rennie Harlan. What were some of the differences between those two directors for you?
Yeah, no, I would call Rennie more like an actor's director. Like he would have meetings with us and pull us aside and have chats with us about the scene coming up or a character in the beginning and, all that kind of thing. He was really into the character development. Where Stephen Hawkins, he is an amazing artist and he actually did all the storyboards himself. So he was much more into the production value of the film. That's what I would say are the differences.
Outside of your work in film, you've worked a lot on TV. So throughout your career, film or television, what would you say is the most challenging project that you've worked on from a production standpoint?
Challenging as far as production, probably Nightmare 4. Yeah, well, because there's a lot of special effects and stuff. So that is, but I mean, I can't say it was a challenge. I mean, it was very well organized and orchestrated and the actors were in great, talented hands, But I would say production, just pulling off the different special effects and stuff.
I'm a long-time Star Trek fan. So you starred in a rather fantastic guest appearance as Utah, or I'm probably butchering that.
No,
Next Generation episodes, The Vengeance Factor. So how was it working on that set?
It was magical. It was truly magical. First of all, we filmed at Paramount, which is my absolute favorite studio to film at. It's absolutely gorgeous. These huge gates. It's beautifully manicured. And of course, the history of Paramount. So that was really amazing. And the production value of Star Trek Next Gen. Wow. I mean, they literally build planets. Okay, it's like a football-sized studio, space, and I mean, you're like, I really am on another planet, It was absolutely amazing, and their attention to my costume was custom made, the piece of jewelry, the thought that goes into, having the tattoo thing here and the hair. I mean, they are like spot on, really professional. So it was great, and the cast was lovely. We had a great, so much fun.
So out of all of the roles you played, which one do people walk up to you and say like, hey, I know you. Where do I know you from?
Well, that's interesting because see, Nightmare 4, I had red hair. Okay. So I go back to blonde. And I read this article once that the most distinguishing characteristic of someone, how we recognize somebody, is hair. And not only hair color, but hairstyle. So isn't that interesting? So I definitely do get, did I go to college with you? You look really familiar. So that's pretty much how I've played so many different kinds of roles, from a shy daydreamer, no makeup, to cheerleaders. I mean, from nuns to prostitutes, basically. And so, and each role is its own character, and hair and makeup and costume and all that. So and then when I usually say, oh, it's probably Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever. And then they'll go, no, I saw you on Mr. Belvedere. I'm an actor. And then they go, oh, I didn't go to college with you. No.
So some people don't know this, but to sort of cash in on the popularity of the two films, there was a Bill and Ted television series in the early 90s, and you starred in that television series. Tell us a bit about it.
It was really great. We actually filmed that in Vancouver, and I had just had my first son. He was 3.5 months old, 4 months old, when I finally said, okay, I can go audition again. I remember this audition. I went and I auditioned, and I was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Just terrible. And I got home and I called my agent. I said, Scott, do you think you could call Geraldine Leader, was the casting director, and she had cast me in other TV stuff, I said, could you call her? Let me have a second chance. So she let me go back in, did a much better audition, called back, met network, got the role. And so I lived up in Vancouver for about 3 months. So it was pretty cool. I set you up in an apartment and all that with my husband and my little baby. Well, it was a lot of fun. And who wouldn't want to play Missy?
Just to back up on Henry's Star Trek question there, we had Jonathan Frakes on recently, and he spoke about how they encountered a lot of problems early on production-wise with Star Trek, with it being such a popular show. Maybe there were some nerves involved and they weren't sure which direction they were going. Now, by the time you joined in for your episodes, did you witness any of that, or by that point were they already a well-oiled machine?
I think they were very well oiled. I think I did the third I was in the third season, if I recall. But I could tell you a story with Jonathan. So there's this scene where we're having dinner together, and I've cooked him parfait. Okay, and this is the beginning of our sort of romantic relationship, and you also are getting the sense that Utah has some kind of backstory going on. So anyway, so we're flirting or whatever, kind of, sort of. He is more than I am. Anyway, and he's eating this parfait, which was like this green Jell-O thing. Okay, and the director goes, cut. Anyway, the food coloring they used was staining his teeth. His teeth were bright green. So we had to stop filming for like an hour and a half to get his poor teeth cleaned. I think they eventually ended up using peroxide or something. So anyway, so whenever I see Jonathan at a convention or something, he's always like, parfait a la Utah. So yeah, he'll never forget me.
Now, his nickname is Two Takes Frakes on set. Is that a lie? Did you ever see him take more than two?
Oh gosh. He's Two Take Frakes. That sounds about right.
Okay.
That sounds about right. And they're well-oiled pros, by then I am. So, it's a shame we didn't get any more takes though at the kissing scene. Right? And he's so tall, and I'm like, I'm 5'4". I used to be 5'5". Now I'm 5'4". As you get older, you shrink. Anyway, they had to put me up on a cherry box, so an apple box, to get me up higher. So it wasn't too awkward, kissing.
Now, Lisa, I know you're a regular on the convention circuit. Have you been doing many since the beginning of the pandemic? Have you switched to maybe more virtual appearances? How is that looking for you right now?
During COVID, of course, like every convention was closed and stuff. But what I did do were like drive-in theaters and stuff. And I spent about 2 weeks on the East Coast going to various stores or outdoor events, you know what I mean? But since we've now come back, this year has been the busiest I've ever been as far as appearances and conventions.
Yeah, and you're a part of two major fan bases. With A Nightmare on Elm Street, you've got every horror convention locked down. And of course with Star Trek has its own circuit of conventions, and you can lump in any sci-fi convention with that. How is it for you experiencing sort of both of those fan bases?
Well, it's very interesting. I would say that Star Trek fans are, a lot of these Star Trek, they are scientists. They're brilliant. I mean, crazy off the charts brilliant. So when, let's say they bring something to sign or they sign one of the pictures I brought, whatever, they're very specific and they often usually bring their own pen and they write down what they want you to say and very organized and very, very precise, you know? And then more the horror ones, that happens sometimes, but no, it's more like, oh, no, wherever you want to write, I don't care, whatever, you know what I mean? So it's a very different mindset.
So Lisa, have you caught any good movies during the lockdown? And they don't have to be horror movies, but that would earn you extra points.
I just saw The Quiet Place, the second one. I really loved it. I love the first one too. It's just phenomenal. Oh my gosh, her birthing scene. You will never forget it. Oh my gosh. But I really, really love Nightmare, the second one too, because it kind of sets up, it goes back into the past a little bit and how these creatures came to Earth, you know, how it all happened so of late. But I have, honestly, I am so behind. I have a list this long of things I need to watch because I have just been traveling. And I think I've done like 12 states this year.
Wow.
And I'm in the process of moving. So that's the latest one I've seen.
So when it comes to working in TV and film, do you have a preference when it comes to the two mediums?
Honestly, I think my very favorite way of working is sitcoms. And we don't really have sitcoms anymore, you know, but I just love sitcoms because it was a very theatrical experience. You have 5 days on Monday and you do a table read. It's just like doing a play. And then you rehearse and you block. And then you work on lines, and at the end of the day, you do what you've done for network and the writers or producers, whatever, and then they go back and rewrite what jokes didn't work or whatever. And then, you know, you do that all week, and then Friday is opening night, and you have a live audience come in, and you get a real reaction to what you're doing. So that is absolutely my favorite genre.
I enjoyed sitcoms myself growing up. What were some of your favorite experiences on the ones you've worked on?
Valerie's Family, one of my absolute favorite episodes. I cry in it, actually, because I'm like the new pretty girl in town, and the boys start making rumors about me, you know, and ultimately confront Bateman. And I'm crying and all this, and then he does a formal apology at school and this and that. So it was a really, really cool episode. It was also the episode where Valerie Harper, lead of Valerie's Family, got fired and was replaced by Sandy Duncan. And that whole episode was reshot with Sandy Duncan. And then it was all over the tabloids and everything about her getting fired and her suing them and this and that. It is beyond me. She was absolutely amazing, fantastic, lovely, down-to-earth woman. So who knows what it was about. Finished the whole episode. We filmed the whole thing. So it was after she was fired, and then that episode was reshot. That doesn't happen very often. But it was a big deal. I mean, it was all over the front of the tabloids and stuff like that.
So Lisa, so for better or for worse, what is your favorite role you've been in?
Favorite role? It's hard to really choose one. I mean, Alice, of course, I love because it's an actor's dream to play a character that has such a character arc, to go from shy daydreamer girl to slowly find her power, find herself, and then, you know, kick ass and you know, at the end. And she's a powerhouse girl. So that is like an actor's dream. I also loved playing, it's called Behind the Scenes, The Brady Bunch. And I played Florence Henderson and Carol Brady in this episode. It was so cool to be in the clothes, and they put it was a hairstyle. She had the wispies and they put a wig here. I had the beauty mark. And then to be on the Brady Bunch set, are you kidding me? That was so awesome. So I really enjoyed playing that role. And Utah Star Trek was a very diverse and very layered character. So I'd say those roles.
Did you knock yourself silly with the nunchucks?
Fortunately, no, because they sent me and Andras, who plays Rick, my brother, to karate school. Okay.
Ooh.
So we would not harm ourselves or others.
That's really cool.
So that was pretty cool.
You know, Nightmare on Elm Street is a franchise that's full of great one-liners, but The Dream Master probably has my personal favorite one, and that's, of course, you know it, "Welcome to Wonderland, Alice." When he just says that, that's just such a perfect parallel for the story, and it's just a great line.
I love that one too. And that whole moment when the doors open, you know, and he's like, "Welcome to what?" And he does that thing that he does, you know. Yeah, that was cool. There's little traces of fairy tale, in Nightmare 4 because I
Yeah.
also remember the theater scene
Yeah.
and I'm flying through the air and flying to the screen and my shoe falls off. My shoe comes off, right? Like
Mhm.
Cinderella.
Very cool.
There's little elements of that throughout Nightmare 4. I think it's such a wonderful script, honestly.
Agreed. Now, what would you say has been the best advice that you've received throughout your career?
Don't give up. Don't study hard. Study. Do scene study. Do theater. Go see theater. Go see opera. See ballet. See, fill your mind and will help your imagination. Thus be able to create good characters, believable characters you fall in love with,
Now, from the outside looking in, to me, it seems like when dealing with something like theater, it would be a lot more nerve-wracking. You're dealing with a live audience. If there's a mess up, you just kind of have to roll with the punches. And if you're on set, you can kind of, cut, let's do it again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. No, theater is the most awesome training ground. Also, soap operas are because soap operas move so fast. One take and you got to know your lines, your blocking. I mean, there is no time to dilly-dally whatsoever. And those were the beginning. That's was the beginning of my career. And that play I told you, I got the lead in this Lanford Wilson play. Oh yeah, things happened all the time. I remember one actress. It's a live performance audience, and this actress came in to do her scene like 4 pages too early. Okay, and the poor audience, and those pages are kind of part of the story. So I'm sure the audience may have been confused, like as they're watching. But anyway, things like that. When a door fell off. All kinds of stuff happens.
Right.
But it's a roller coaster. It's such an adrenaline rush when it's curtain. It's the best. I hope one day to do theater again. Maybe when I retire, and in my older years, do theater again.
Now, have you done much improv, Lisa? Improv is something a lot of our guests that are actors or actresses say helps them quite a bit.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I need to do more. And it's so much fun. I recommend it for anyone, and in these classes that I took in Los Angeles, there were people who, have to do a lot of speaking engagements or they just want to do it for fun. Improv is such a great, great tool. I just did a movie with Jamie Kennedy. If you know the comedian Jamie Kennedy. I just did a movie with him and I was so nervous. Even on set, I was shaking, and even Jamie, because he's a comedian, and so we have script, right? We've got our words, but I was also told by the director and Jamie that okay, so we're gonna do the scene, but then Jamie is a great improvist. I mean, he is a stand-up comedian, right?
Right.
So I just had to roll with it in this and that. But literally before we started doing it, we were blocked, and he's just standing there, whatever, and I'm kind of shaking. He's like, "Are you cold?" and it did happen to be a little chilly in the space. He said, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "Wait, guys, let's get Lisa a sweater." So he didn't know I was shaking. Now, once we started rolling, and he's the coolest guy, I finally calmed down. But it's
Right.
I'm not a trained stand-up comedian by any means, So,
Exactly.
but it went great. It went just great. And it was a reminder of, okay, I want to sign up for an improv class again.
You are in one of the most memorable scenes involving food known to man. The soul pizza.
The soul pizza. Yes, I know. I love it. I know. I love that.
So-
That is a very famous. In fact, that picture of me and Freddie with the pizza, that's a very popular autographed one for sure. And it's kind of funny. I actually did a Little Caesars commercial.
Oh.
And I was sitting in my chair getting my makeup put on, and one of the producers came over and said, "I just have to tell you, I loved your role as Alice. I just loved it." So, and I actually was talking to Robert Englund's commercial agent. Don't you think that we should reenact that scene in some way and do it for Domino's or something like that during
Absolutely.
October? It's a no-brainer. So anyway, Robert's commercial agent, he's looking for a buyer, and hopefully Domino's or, one of the real big commercial brands. So pizza brands.
To piggyback on that, I like to ask our guests, what's your go-to movie snack? What's that one thing you can munch on while you're watching a movie that just makes your experience complete?
Oh, it's popcorn and peanut M&Ms.
Do you mix them?
Always. The combination is just divine. So try it.
a
Every
good
time
answer.
I go out to the movies. Peanut M&Ms, buttered popcorn,
Gotta have the butter.
and a Diet Coke.
Yeah.
So before we let you out of here, Lisa, what's on the horizon? Anything coming down the pipeline?
Yes, I just had a movie called Mystery Spot come out, and it played at a huge film festival in London called Fright Fest. Fear
Oh,
Fest
yeah.
or Fright Fest. Anyway, and we got wonderful reviews. And then it was actually nominated for Best Performance from that film at the Buffalo Film Festival that just happened. I didn't win, but at least I was nominated. So keep your eyes out for that. We'll get a distribution deal for sure. I just did something called Seasons. It's like a 4-part thing. Think of the 4 seasons. So it's like a
Right.
horror story for each season. So much fun. I got the winter season, Christmas time, and super fun. And then I have so much coming up. Yeah, or like 4 movies already for next year. I can't necessarily talk about them yet, but I have contracts and, they're financed, and some of them are some really nice budgets too. So definitely go. I'm trying to keep my website, which is Lisa E. Wilcox. Don't go to Lisa Wilcox. There is one there, but they never respond. Lisa E. Wilcox is the one that I designed, or, someone helped me design and run it. So I'm trying to keep it up to date, and I know I have to update the films on there,
Gotcha.
And then this one called that I can talk about with Jamie Kennedy that I just did is called Don't Suck. So think of vampires and comedians. Don't suck. Got it?
I'm
Get
sold.
it?
Mhm. Yep.
It's
Sold.
really great. So yeah, I've been back at it for a couple of years now. I left for a long time, but I'm back.
That's great. We're glad you're back.
Thank you.
For your kids, do they have a particularly favorite role of yours? Do they like
I think they liked my Boy Meets World, Mr. Belvedere. They liked the sitcoms back then, episodic. Well, probably I got to work with George Clooney before he was the George Clooney, which was really fun. And they liked Nightmare on Elm Street. If they didn't, I wouldn't talk to them. I'm kidding.
All right, Lisa, we know you are running out of battery. I want to thank you so much for giving us your time, and you have a good night.
Ciao.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.